Hey everyone, welcome to some more Splatoon coverage here from myself, Nbz, and my friend Bally. Hi Bally, how you doing?
Hello, Nbz. I am thoroughly buzzing about Splatoon.
Yeah, so we just played the first hour of the Splatoon global Testfire is what it's called, right?
Yes, global test fire.
Yeah, so it's basically I wouldn't call it a beta because beta implies that it's early in development, but it's obviously not because it's coming out at the end of this month. Then again, fucking every video game company has diluted the term beta to a meaningless like demo thing anyway. So I kind of look at it more as a server stress test than anything else, to be honest.
And like a hype train. Like,
Yeah.
they want us to have a little taster, and at the end of that hour, you're wanting more. So they know that they're not giving you enough where you can think, oh, I've had my Splatoon fix. I don't think I'll pick up the game. They've just given you a tiny little bit where you think, I need this. I need to get this at the end of May when it comes out. So
Yes, the
yeah.
29th of May. In fact, I pre-ordered on Amazon because I had £2 off from the fact that they never delivered my Shulk amiibo, so they gave me a voucher
Oh,
for
very
games.
good. I think that's the same day as my marathon, actually.
Oh, really?
I have a
Wow.
feeling it is. Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's coming out then, and I'm really pumped for it now. There's lots of good stuff to talk about, so we can dig into that. First of all, Bally, initial impressions. We kind of went over this with the first video where we just kind of did a live kind of commentary over the top of the
Yeah.
footage. What were your thoughts though as soon as you jumped into Splatoon?
I was quite worried just from looking at E3 last year and everything that the controls would be a bit, not fiddly, but I thought it would take quite a bit of getting used to. And it's completely the opposite. I think it's incredibly easy to pick up and play. The tutorial's really short, really simple. I've never really played any sort of third-person shooter before, and I just jumped in and it was pretty straightforward, really.
Yeah, it uses a combination of the analog stick and the gyro. Like in the demo, at least you can't turn either one of them off, so you can't have only gyro and you can't have only analog stick. And that's a little bit unfortunate because I would have liked to try with both of them separately and kind of seen what I preferred. For me, I think the gyro controls work nicely, but the problem is sometimes the way you hold the controller is kind of tipped downwards, so the camera angle sometimes gets a bit wonky, like especially when I was playing as the roller, because I wasn't aiming anywhere. I was kind of holding my gamepad in kind of downward position, so the camera was more on top of me, so I couldn't really look at what was coming ahead. I had to kind of consciously make that decision to lift the gamepad up.
Yeah, I thought it worked well in the sense that I might be getting sniped at from someone up high, and I just quickly give the gamepad a little quick tilt up, and then all of a sudden the camera looks up at them, and I think, right, there's my guy. And because the camera is almost linked to the direction you're aiming, I could just start shooting away and killed them on top of that block or whatever. So I thought it worked well.
Yeah, I think my main problem when it comes to camera control is the gyro controls are great and they work quickly. The problem with the analog stick is it felt a little sluggish to me. Like, it didn't feel like I was able to move the camera quickly enough with the analog stick, and as such I didn't use it as much. Like, I just tended to use the quick flick of the gyro way more often than adjusting with the analog stick.
Yeah,
not sure how
I
you
mean,
felt about
I'm not an FPS player at all, really, but I could imagine that the reverse of what you're suggesting is that it's incredibly sensitive, and I think it's that balance between what feels slow and what feels fast and what doesn't feel sort of jolty, I guess, where you're kind of, the camera swings around and all of a sudden you're way past the point at which you wanted to shoot.
Yeah.
But I have to say, my favorite thing, and this is something they teach you straight away, and I mean, I guess it's something I already, actually no, I didn't know this. I didn't know that you charged your ink from being a squid and running through ink, swimming through ink, I should say. So I love the fact that it encourages that alternate way to traverse the world. And they make a real point of it, because your character, when you're not a squid, runs incredibly slowly. Like you sort of trudge along. But while you're a squid, it's really quite quick. You can really get across the stage quickly, and it really makes a difference. And I just love how they force you to play in that way.
Yeah, I think I was kind of, when I first started playing with your standard kind of shooter gun, what was the gun called? The splatter shot?
Splatter shot, yeah.
Yeah, so when I first started playing as that, I was kind of consistently like firing a few pellets, then diving to the ink and firing a few.
Yeah.
Because it basically gives you
Exactly.
much more momentum, allows you to get through the stage faster. So if you're just kind of running along and just shooting as you run and not diving back into the ink, not only are you not going to be able to consistently do that because you have to replenish the ink, right, as you go, it will kind of just run out. But you'll also be really slow, you won't be able to cover as much ground as quickly, and the aim of the game is to get as much of the ground covered with paint as possible before the other team, and there's a time limit involved, so you want to be quick about it. So definitely, it seems like there are going to be a lot of techniques that people are going to start to learn, and how to get around quickly, and how to weave through the maps, which are the best areas to attack first. That will all kind of evolve as the meta of Splatoon evolves, right? But
Yeah, I
for
mean,
the moment, it's kind of, just finding your feet with it.
Just a
with the
super
controls.
quick comparison, like between something like a splat roller, where while you're using it, you're going at that slow pace I was describing, but you're creating a very consistent, wide trail of paint. Whereas the splatter shot, you can still create a trail of paint, but you can also do it much more quickly because you shoot a bit, swim, shoot a bit, swim, and I really preferred that to sort of the splat roll. I know you really liked the splat roll, Nbz, but I just could not. I don't know, I just felt slow and I felt vulnerable because obviously while you're a squid swimming through the ink, you are basically invisible to the opposing team and less of a target.
Yeah, so how about we just kind of jump
Sure.
into the weaponry then? Let's talk about that. So the first gun you start off in the tutorial, I think, is the Splattershot Junior, or is it the standard one?
I couldn't
Quite
remember,
honestly,
yeah.
I couldn't tell the difference between those two guns. Did you feel any significant?
I think I only used the Splattershot Junior once, so I'd have to try out again. But yeah, they do feel incredibly similar. They're basically your standard. They just splatter a few shots, as the name suggests, really. Pretty simple, but works really well. And like I said, you can create a bit of mess in front of you, swim in it, jump out, create some more mess, and you obviously have the ability to directly shoot your enemies, which is good.
Yeah, it's definitely the kind of your base weapon. In the sense that it's kind of like your Mario of Mario in Smash Brothers, like he's kind of your average all-rounder.
That's why I love it.
Right, yeah, and I think that actually makes a lot of sense for the way that you play games like that. The fact that you would gravitate more towards this because it allows you to get good coverage, it allows you to shoot enemies and kill them with relative ease. It allows you to amass amount of paint that you can dive through and get to areas with. So it is kind of your all-rounder. It's not kind of super strong in any area, but it has a lot of kind of abilities to it that can just make it a solid choice overall.
And I guess we can talk about secondary weapons later, or do you want to talk about them now?
Sure. I mean, the secondary weapon, I think, with the splatter gun is just a grenade, or it's just like a giant ball of paint that explodes.
Yeah, so with the splatter shot, the regular one, it's an instant little bomb. And then with the splatter shot junior, it's like a time delayed bomb.
Yeah, little time delay. It's not a huge time delay.
Yeah, it's just sort of like a pyramid shape. And I think the time delayed one makes a slightly bigger mess. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would have to look into that, but I do believe it is a bit of a larger blast radius, just because you're kind of losing out on the instanticity, I guess, of the other one, the big splat bomb. Did you find yourself using those secondaries that much throughout the game? Because I felt like I kind of forgot about them a lot of the time.
I would try to, standard FPS strategy of, throw a grenade in and then follow it up. So I try and throw a bomb around a blind corner, make a mess that I can swim into, and then swim into it, pop up and start shooting. And it worked quite well, but obviously that's something, it's quite a skill, that, to be honest. I think it's something that I could get a lot better at with a bit of practice.
Yeah, and I'm interested in the final game because obviously these are kind of just preset loadouts, right? You have to have the bomb with that. It's going to be cool when we get to the actual product of choosing what fits best for you, what kind of secondary you like the most, what worked with your playstyle, and then you can kind of mix and match with the different weapons and kind of roll out with the stuff that you want. Speaking of rolling out, let's segue to the paint roller, which was
Splat
probably
roller,
All right, let's get the real names here, Bally. Thank you very much. This was probably my favorite weapon that I used, and it kind of defies the convention of Splatoon being based around shooting to some degree, because
Turns
obviously
shooting into walking.
yeah. So I love the paint roller for a few reasons. One is that the main kind of idea behind the turf war gameplay mode is you have to cover as much ground as possible. So the team who has the highest percentage wins, the highest percentage of paint on the field wins. And the splat roller is no doubt about it the best tool for doing that. It covers the most ground in the shortest amount of time, and you can easily kind of dive back into your own ink trail and then just start rolling again. The issue comes obviously with range, and you know, if you're further away from your enemy, more likely they're going to get the better of you because they're going to be able to shoot from a distance, and you're going to have to kind of run away and maybe kind of find a way back around them to kind of just charge into them and roll them over. But that is the nice thing about it, is that if you do spot someone and you're kind of stealthy with your roller, in the sense that you're kind of staying in the ink and you're hiding and you're not making yourself known, you can pop out right behind them and just walk through them and they're dead. Like, there's no aiming necessary. You don't have to worry about like getting into a war with them. You just like instantly remove them from the field, and it's really satisfying. Also, when two people who have rollers kind of run into each other, a lot of the time it will do a double kill, so you'll both just suicide essentially on one another, which I guess is equal terms for both teams, but kind of messes things up a little bit. So
yeah, I just found, like I said before, I felt quite vulnerable with the roller, and that it's not a very good matchup against someone who's facing you with a splatter shot. I mean, obviously, like you said, it's great for sneaking up at the side or behind them, but I feel like face to face, the splatter shot has a massive advantage against someone with just a splat roller. And with the splat roller, what I was describing before with the splatter shot, where you shoot and then you swim, shoot and swim, you can't really do that with the splat roller, because you're at the point of the sort of, you're creating the boundary at your character. The boundary is not being created in front of you, so there's nothing to swim into in front of you. But I guess defensively, you can just sort of swim backwards on the roll, on the paint trail that you've just created.
right, and I think
you find
if
yourself
you're
doing that much?
Yeah, I found myself definitely having to, at points, kind of roll back. But there are certain maps, like the way the maps are designed, we'll get into this in a second, but certain maps are quite linear, and it's just kind of one end of the corridor, other end of the corridor, and you're kind of just going head to head at each other.
Yeah.
But like the one that was kind of based around like a harbor, there are lots of areas where there's kind of a dead end, and it's hard to get back to the main area. So what I tended to do with the splat roller on those is just go to those dead ends, clean all that space up, get it covered, and then I would just come back through my own ink, because I couldn't go anywhere after the dead end anyway. I was stuck there. So I would just use that fact that I already painted the ink there to just quickly get back to my teammates, start finding a new area, start making a path. So it certainly, I think, works better in the maps that aren't so linear, right? They're more kind of off to the side.
I feel like it is the best at doing your own thing, like staying away from the fight and just painting the ground. Like, you're doing the real sort of manual labor of winning the match. You're just sort of putting down the paint, of getting away from everyone and covering whole bits of the map that people aren't fighting on. And then all of a sudden, someone might come over to where you are, and they're like, oh crap, the whole area is already whatever color you're painting, I need to change it back, sort of thing. So it is quite good in that sense.
Yeah, it's also good if you kind of find yourself in enemy territory, and you know, you have a lot of their kind of paint to sludge through. You can just kind of just walk straight through that stuff, because otherwise I feel like you have a much tougher time covering enemy ink if you're the splatter shot pistol, because you know, you have the risk of getting stuck in theirs quite easily.
I found myself shooting at the ground right in front of me initially, just to get out of the foreign color that I was in, just to get into my own color, get a bit of ink, come back up, then make a mess.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last weapon we can talk about is the sniper rifle. What was it called, Bally?
The Splat Charger.
The Splat Charger. So actually in the Nintendo Direct they talked about how this was... Well, I think all the weapons came in different varieties, but you know, I think the one that we had was probably the standard rifle. Like, it didn't have a super huge range, and the charge time wasn't too bad.
No.
but it's definitely very, very different. And I think it's perhaps the least effective in many senses.
It's like an exaggerated splatter shot.
Yes, it really is. So how are your experiences with the sniper rifle, Bally?
Initially I was thinking, great, I can just sort of hang behind the other guys in my team, line up a shot with the enemy, release, kill them, and I should say that when you do a long range shot, it creates a trail of your own ink following the bullet that you've just fired or whatever. So you can charge up a shot, shoot it. There's a massive, quite a long trail, and then you can just squid your way right up through the trail and get to where the bullet hit, which is quite cool. But the time it takes to charge up, I found that someone with like a splatter shot could just get right up in my face and start shooting me almost instantly. It's not overly slow, but I feel like you have to be so, it sounds obvious, but you have to be so precise. And I really found, I think I must have only got like 2 or 3 kills in the one match I used it in. And that's because it's just so hard to line up the shot, really. And I think maybe I just wasn't getting the distance right. I mean, obviously it's great to kind of get a high spot with the splat charger, try and sneak up behind people, shoot them, etc. And I think that with a lot of practice, it's something you could definitely get into, but it's definitely a difficult weapon to just pick up and play.
Yeah, there are a couple of points I want to make about this weapon. First of all, I think it was the time at which I felt the gyro controls needed to be turned off for me, because I felt like trying to get a good shot in when I was using gyro combined with analog made it really wobbly, and I wasn't able to kind of focus there. If I'd had just pure analog control, I think the kind of the what's it called again? The charger?
Splat charger.
Splat charger. See, I'm turning into you now, Bally.
I know, right? I should say I've got a big screen with the names in front of me. My memory that cannot remember these gun names for the life.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so for the splat charger, I do think it would work way better with analog control. The second thing is, in terms of verticality, I had trouble sometimes even hitting people above me who are really close by. I'd charge up the full shot, shoot at someone who was above a ledge, and it just wouldn't do anything. So I'm not sure if that's, just a limitation of the sniper or anything, but even if you're up high and shooting down below, I think there are a little bit of kind of issues going on there with how the paint rolls out. But it's still fun to play as. It's definitely probably the most useless weapon in this gameplay mode, simply because here, well, I would definitely say it's the case because you're not really covering that much ground a lot of the time, and you have to charge, so it takes longer. And also, I just don't think killing enemies gives you that much advantage in this mode.
I disagree in the sense that, say that your two characters are a sniper and a splat roller. The splat roller, as much as you defend the Nbz, it's not the best at fighting. So
I think you need to learn how to use it in combat, because there were many times in those games, and there's footage probably playing right now. Like my last couple of games with the splat roller, I was diving in ink, I was popping up people, I was splatting them in the face, and then moving on and helping someone else and sticking with someone. The splat roller can be used well offensively, especially, you can shake it off to spread a little ink in front of you. That also helps a lot.
I think that the sniper is good for hanging back, clearing out the enemy, and allowing the other weapon users to just get in and start making mess. So I don't think it's... I think it's got more poignance? Is that a word? Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure if you're right in this context, but... Sure.
Well, anyway, it's got more impetus. What word am I looking for here?
I have no idea what you're
looking for. It's got more purpose than perhaps you're giving it credit for in this mode.
Yeah, maybe. But I obviously, like, the sniper was the one I probably used the least.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I didn't get too deep into the mechanics of it. So before we move on to talking about map design and everything, let's talk a little bit about special weapons, because I think in our first video we didn't have any idea how special weapons worked, and we weren't really seeing anyone use it until kind of the latter half of the hour. So what really was going on is that every time you fill up a meter on the top right hand corner, your character starts flashing, and that signals the fact that you have a special attack available to you. And so I'm not sure what the special attacks were for the other classes, but for the roller, which was the one I was using the most.
If you want to know.
Oh, really? Well,
So
for the roller, the one I was using the most was like this kind of sound-based, massive thing that you place on the ground and just like blast through everyone.
Yeah.
So that worked pretty
And
nicely
then for
me.
the splatter shot, it was basically the regular bombs, but you were able to use loads of them back to back without any charge. Or
Oh, okay.
You could
So
use
it's just...
you could fire off like 10 in the space of 10 seconds or so, just really rapid fire.
Right, and I think the other one was a giant kind of shield orb
Yeah,
that,
so for
that
the
helped
splatter
you.
shot junior, you got the shield, which I think can just basically take a full hit.
Yeah.
It's basically an extra life, I think.
It seems so. It seems like just a defensive buffer against any shots that hit you. So in that sense, I think the Splat Rollers special was probably the coolest, because
Yeah, it looked
the other
really
two
good.
were just like throw a bunch of things, and one was a shield. So
Yeah.
it was really, it helped the Splat Roller become more offensive.
Yeah.
So it gave you kind of that range that you didn't have otherwise, and it was also really easy to build that meter up with the Splat Roller because of the nature of the weapon being that you are creating such a good amount of paint spread in such a short period of time. So I was a huge fan of that, and I'm excited to see what other special weapons crop up. And I'm interested to see whether you can customize the special weapons or if those are tied to the secondary or to the primary. But we'll see. We'll see when the full game comes out, that is for sure. So I guess we'll move on to the map designs. There are about 3 or 4, I think 3 probably total maps
According
that were
to
available.
this NeoGAF thread, there's 2.
Oh, really? Because
Wall-Eye Warehouse and Salt Spray Rig.
Because I feel like I had a third one, and I can't quite remember what it was.
I
but-
agree, it felt like there was a third, but I can't quite describe it.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely the two kind of differences between the ones that the Gaff thread mentions are the linearity, kind of head-to-head nature of one of the maps, which is the
Wall-Eye
warehouse.
yeah.
How did you feel about that one? I felt like this was not my favorite, probably my least favorite.
I mean, the fact that I was using the splatter shot, I way preferred this one because it was just way more combat, way more just get up in their face.
Definitely, this one kind of forces everyone towards a choke point,
Yeah,
right? So you're
absolutely.
getting more combat happening.
And there's
there.
a few higher points where people can snipe and things like that. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I certainly preferred the other one, which, as we said before, is the like kind of oil rig, as it were.
It definitely benefits the splat roller more.
Right, because I'm just going off
Yeah.
into the corners and
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
painting and getting a lot of ground covered. So that one was really cool, and I like the fact it wasn't very linear, and you can kind of explore. It's more of an exploratory map. And you know that you'll kind of come across less people. There'll be less combat, but it's more the focus of like, okay, let's check the map and see what the paint spread is and where I need to go. Where do I need to walk to? So yeah, it was a lot of good fun in that one. I enjoyed it a lot. So I'm looking forward to seeing what other maps are available. I don't know kind of what the theming will be, but so far. I'm not kind of head over heels with the art design of the maps. I love the visual style and everything, but I think maybe they could get a little bit more
we're not
creative.
trendy Japanese people, Nbz. Like this
Yeah.
is very trendy Japanese.
I guess. I don't even know. I mean, speaking of the visuals and everything, how do you think the game looked, Bally?
Incredible. And it's I think going for what it's going for with sort of the amount of ink flying around and literally painting over massive portions of the map, it looks really good, and there's no slowdown. It was really smooth. It's got a real shiny sheen to it, and it's just a really clean looking HD game, and I'm really impressed.
Yeah, you can say colourful is the apt phrase here.
Yes.
It's absolutely filled with colour.
And so many of the sound, so much of the sound design sounds so similar to Mario Sunshine. So the gloopy pops and squelches and sticky noises that you had with Mario Sunshine when you defeated enemies that were ink or gloop related in that game. I'd even be convinced that they just ripped a few straight from that game.
Maybe they might have well done that. Just gone into the archives of Nintendo HQ and found some Mario sound effects. But I think actually the game was initially pitched as a Mario game, so makes sense.
Yes,
in a way. So
some sort of crazy Super Mario Sunshine remake.
Yeah, and then I think the last thing, maybe just talk a little bit about the gamepad usage. Obviously the map gets shown and you can see the coverage. You can also tap on it to kind of warp places. How did you find the warping system work? Did you like it? Did you think it was a little confusing? Or because I think sometimes the way that they pointed out where the player was, you had to follow the line to where they were indicated on the map. And that took me a couple of seconds to kind of get a feel of like, okay, I want to go there and then follow the line back, which person I need to click to get to.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think it's fine, but this might sound controversial. I think the game would be just as good without any of that warping. Because the maps, certainly the ones that we've played on so far, they're so small, and often you have your own ink in your half of the map, so it's incredibly quick to just get back to where you were. And there were quite a few times I wouldn't even bother warping from the spawn point because it just didn't feel quicker many times. So I would just swim up and get back into the action.
I tended to warp way more, and I think that was because I saw opportunities at the far end where someone else was to start clearing out a lot of their paint and stuff. So I didn't feel like wasting the time going through my ink because I wasn't really achieving anything, right? And the team wasn't benefiting from me doing that. So I kind of liked it. I think that maybe it's going to be interesting with the Wii U Pro controller and how that works, right? Because if you're not having the gamepad active, how are you going to be able to warp to anyone at any point?
And I do think the gamepad is great because the whole mission is to paint most of the map your color, and having a live update a live image of the entire map on the gamepad just to see and judge for yourself how much of the map is painted in your color is really useful and really helps me a lot of times just to think, right, that area is completely blank or is their color, I need to get over there and start spraying.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, the other thing with the map, but not the map, but with the gamepad is in between the loading screens they have mini games popping up. There was only one in this demo. But,
Doodle Jump.
Yeah, it was basically an iOS game, and it wasn't very good, but it was a little time waster. You know, it's nothing super special, but I like the fact that they've thrown that in there because, like, so often in FPS, you're just sitting there in a lobby doing absolutely fucking nothing, but you can now use the gamepad as a second screen to actually kind of
which is cool.
about.
I really like that.
Yeah, it's just it's one of those smart little things. Like, it's not going to get a huge amount of praise, but it's that added little extra level of polish that you come to expect from Nintendo.
They said how there's going to be about 5 different games, and I presume you'll be able to just pick your favorite and have that as the stock one while you're waiting for an online match, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, either that or it'll be randomly decided.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see, I guess. But yeah, that was the Splatoon Global Testfire. It was a lot of fun and really has me very excited for this game.
Yes.
We're going to be streaming later today. I'm not sure when this video will go out, but you know, when the last session of the Splatoon Global Testfire occurs, we'll be streaming that on Twitch. So go check that out. Also, if you want to hear more of our impressions of this game when it finally launches at the end of May, you can go listen to our podcast. It's called This Nintendo Life. It's on iTunes. It will be in the description. It's also on YouTube, so you can listen on the playlist. SoundCloud, Stitcher, everywhere. There's loads of places to listen to This Nintendo Life. Where can people follow that Twitter, Bally, for people to keep updates?
The Twitter account for the podcast is @TNL Podcast. That's @TNL Podcast. It's a great place to go for all the updates. We'll tweet about when the most recent shows go live on iTunes and YouTube, and any sort of other video content like the one we're doing right now might fit in between. So it's a good account to check out.
Yes, so Bally, where can people find you on Twitter if they want to follow your ramblings?
And I am @Ballyman91, BALLYMAN91, and that is also my name on the Miiverse.
Yes, and that'll be linked in the description, so you can go find him. I'm obviously @LordNBZ on Twitter. You can find me there, and we'll be back later with some more Splatooning, I guess. But until then, thank you for watching / listening, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye. Bye.
No. No.